AviaAM Leasing today, you are involved in quite a significant part of trading. And this is an industry that not too many people talk about quite a lot, right? And I'm not going to say it's niche, but it is a very significant part because, as we spoke about earlier in the interview, you've got lessors, airlines, they're putting together airframes with engines. This could be an airframe from one airline and an engine from another one, and an engine from
Absolutely.
another airline.
You can pick up
Yes.
around the globe all the pieces.
And how are you navigating that?
I talked on this topic with many investors as well, and trading for them is not sustainable business. I said, look, we are doing more than 10 years that successfully each and every year growing, so what is the sustainability?
How do you
No,
measure that?
So I appreciate that. I understand that trading is something which you can call a one-off deals, even if you do it many years in a row, might be that, at some point you will not be able to find a project or something like that. But I wouldn't agree to that because trading in my eyes is it's not like just you are buying and reselling, because then obviously you will not make a more significant margin because everyone is aware of the market prices and everything. The value comes out from the efforts you spend into creating the aircraft, which is available for the next round of lease or next round of living, you can say. And then when you do all these puzzle deals, you use your knowledge, you use your expertise, your technical expertise, your MRO capabilities and everything, which is time consuming, but one of the means how to still be in position to earn decent margins in this highly overpriced market. So maybe for somebody, trading sounds like, okay, they bought and resold. Where is the fun? So,
Where is the fun?
so the fun, there is lots of fun in those puzzle type of projects, and they are positive and negative. Obviously, you're facing maybe more maintenance issues, or it's how to say. As I mentioned already, it takes much longer, since the moment you buy and bring everything together to the moment you sell, it might go up to 6 and 8 months. So. But then at the end, you have something which you built with your expertise, and you add the value to that, and then even even the customers are paying the premium because you did something special, something custom, like installed certain type of seats or whatever. So that's how we navigate in it.
There's a sector of the industry, cargo. I'm going to keep it, very frank with you. You've got cargo. Now, obviously, you look at pre-2019 or, before 2019, where cargo was a very constant in the industry. You've got the post-2019 where cargo shot up.
Yeah.
Now we're in a post-cargo environment where there's a lot of fluctuations. There is a lot of, shall I say, indecision or decisions from airlines saying, okay, how much cargo capacity should we have? How is this a benefit for our business, right? We've heard a lot from the airlines in terms of how they are navigating cargo. How are you as a lessor dealing with cargo? Very exciting topic. I want to know your opinions on that.
Look, at the end, I should admit the toughest business is done by the airline, because airline needs to do the business and then pay to everyone, to the lessor, to the maintenance organization, to the, I don't know, financiers and whatever. So yeah, so doing business is hard. Doing aviation cargo business is even harder. So me as a lessor, yeah, I could say we are stuck a bit with the narrow body freighters, which we still have around, but they are not so much demanded in the market, and that's once again outcome of the environment which we inherited after the COVID, because the conversion of the 737 NGs 800s, it started much earlier than it should be started, because the classics, they're still flying around. They were much, much cheaper at the moment of the conversion. And now you have, the aircraft with the similar capabilities, except of one panel, at the 2 times higher price. So why to pay for it? I mean, okay, you can talk about it's more reliable, less time on the ground. I mean, usually the narrow body cargo aircraft, they are not so highly utilized. And in the classical environments, usually they were used for the biggest integrators to feed their hubs. But I would say that it also depends on the geography. Like in Europe, most probably we are used to
Yes.
have these short flights for the integrators, and we have a very well developed, let's say, railway and roads, which maybe it doesn't make sense to fly somewhere from northern Europe to the southern Europe with the aircraft, while you can go with the truck in 2-3 days, so not a huge difference. But in certain geographies, certain regions, still narrow body freighters are well finding the place, and those could be mentioned like in China or Brazil or some other countries which are much bigger. They have not how to say, they have certain niche for these operations. So so mixed feeling, Michael. I mean, tough place to be now on the narrow bodies freighters. On the wide bodies, once again, after this colossal happiness,
Yeah.
happiness. I mean, extremely high margins in the days of COVID, and obviously you went down to some more normal market conditions, or even lower, because for the long haul and wide body cargo operations, obviously the world trading is the key engine for that. And then with certain uncertainties from the, I don't know, tariffs perspective, for example, it can immediatly disrupt anything.
Yes.
So
Very true. Very true.
I
Very
will
true.
not delve into the politics, but most probably the word tariffs was well heard in
Everyone
the
knows,
media.
and especially when you jump into when you jump into tariffs, when you jump into some of the, and you mentioned very nicely. Okay, we have obviously the economical influences, right? Tariffs. You've got the geopolitical geography influences as well, right? With the various number of uh, events that have happened in the world today that one influence airlines operations. They influence how airlines are looking at capacity and how they can manage it. They're also influencing how airlines are deploying capacity into the market. Now, yes, we are in a market today where, uh, m- let's say, lessors are in an advantage. Let's say it that way. But at the same time, how are you handling that conversation with airlines? Because obviously they're coming from, and I don't want to say a weaker position, but a position where there's a lot of collaboration needed.
Mm.
And obviously this now lends into, right, how do, what's an airline's relationship with their current lessors, with their current OEMs? How are you coming into that conversation? Yes, from a position of leverage, from a position of advantage, but how are you navigating that as a lessor?
Michael, I think in everything there should be a balance. I mean, okay, even admitting that lessors are in better position. If you will force somebody to sign for something which doesn't make sense for them,
Mhm.
at the end you will be what, facing the problems of non-payments, and they are not doing great with your high lease rentals. I'm simplistically describing the situation. Would you be willing to step into that just because the lease rental is higher than with a more reliable operator? Most probably not. So it's your appetite for the risk, and if you want to really strive for the highest possible lease rent, and know the source who are doing that, they're really finding, let's say, small weak airlines and pushing in on the very high lease rental, and then they're squeezing the juices out of it. And this small airline usually is not, how to say, powerful or knowledgeable enough to fight back. So I'm not saying there are many of those bad guys, but some of them, they are known in the market. No, in my eyes, it's lessee's reliability is the key. Lessee's understanding of the business they are doing, because frankly speaking, to do business in aviation while having 1, 2, or 3 aircraft airline, it's just impossible unless there are very, very specific environments around this project. But you have to have certain size, and certain understanding and things like that. So in my eyes, even I wouldn't be using too much this market position to go to the highest possible lease rental, but rather still focus on the core things like the reliability and the reputation of your lessee.
Which is so important because, yes, reliability, you as a lessor, in terms of the product that you deliver for airlines. But there's another side of this coin, which is the OEM's involvement. Because at the end of the day, the OEM still needs to produce the capacity that's going to enter the market. Now, we to some degree, we know how OEMs are dealing with airlines in particular. We don't get too much information about how OEMs are talking to lessors, who are also a very important, part of the puzzle in terms of putting capacity into the market. What's your view on that?
Oh, no, OEMs, they were always treating better airlines than the lessors.
Okay, yeah.
And it's, partly joke because obviously the lessors especially with the speculative orders, like not having the lessee yet in place but ordering certain number of the aircraft, they could be kind of making influence into the market. So yeah, but for the OEMs, always the airlines, there is a rumor even that they're getting cheaper prices for the aircraft than the lessors. So I don't see any reasons why the balance of more or less 50% owned and 50% leased fleet at the airlines should change dramatically. Obviously, there is a kind of tendency that the portion of the leased in aircraft is growing bigger than the airline owned assets. But then you need a big pile of money to buy to buy tens and hundreds of aircraft, and obviously there are some airlines they are capable of financing themselves, and that's another type of the airline. So, but in my eyes, this, let's say, lessors owned assets versus the airline owned assets, especially when talking about the brand new deliveries, it shouldn't be changing dramatically when it comes to the percentage owned by lessors and percentage owned by the airlines. Because frankly speaking, that's a capital intensive thing, and you need lots of capital to invest to. So quite only few airlines capable of doing that, especially quite a few airlines capable of raising financing.
One aspect that I want to touch on here, especially in terms of looking towards the future, which is, it's a big part of our business. It's a big part of the aviation business, a big part of the travel business as well. We get these predictions saying, all right, in the next 20 years' time, or 2040, 2050, we need this amount of aircraft in the market. At the same time, we still need to deal with what's happening in the market today, what's going to happen in the market a year from now, 24 months from now, 36 months from now. For you as AviaAM Leasing, how are you, and just to set a bit of context there, because you've been responsible for over 150, 200 transactions in recent years in terms of aircraft placement, aircraft trading, aircraft leasing. So you're playing a very significant role in the business today in getting capacity to airlines and inadvertently getting people to fly as well. Now, still on the same topic of looking towards the future, how are you looking towards the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, and into the future as well, 36, 5 years into the future?
Well, it's a bit of a controversy because, it's always good to have a long-term plan. Yeah? The whole group is striving for the 10 years plans and 12 years plan. The good and bad thing about AviaAM, it's impossible to tell what we will be doing in 10 years from now. I'll elaborate a bit more and explain why, because obviously the long-term strategy or long-term plan is always nice to have, but you never know what will happen in the market. And we are really looking for the niche opportunities in the current market. And who knows what will be the niche opportunity after 8 or 10 years. So that's a bad thing for business planning. And I know that most probably group planning people is hating AviaAM because our plans is not so neatly,
Hmm.
let's say, laid down 10 years ahead.
Yes.
On the other hand, that's the core of our business, being flexible and being able to adjust to the market, to the current market. So obviously we know what we'll be doing in the proximity of 12 or 24 years, because most probably we're already working on some of the projects or potential acquisitions, because those projects that we do, they're taking a longer time. But drawing something more in the future, it just doesn't make sense, because you might be planning, okay, I will do more cargo conversions, but maybe they will not be needed. So I don't see any point of planning something so far in advance, that because the market will show what's the
Because
niche
the
and the
market is
possibility.
changing. Yes.
Exactly.
Hmm. I want to ask you about especially the slots, because it's become such an important part of our business today. Maintenance providers in terms of slots into the future, right? You have maintenance services, whether it's A checks, it's D checks, it's C checks, booked 2 5 years into the future. You've got deliveries as well, booked 2030, 2032. For lessors in terms of slots, because that's an important part of the business, even conversions as well. But how are you seeing the demand for the slots and navigating that, maybe even trading slots as well? How are you dealing with that?
Look, in the MRO business and the slots availability there, I think it's a hard time now. Obviously, there is a seasonality like in all aviation, so most probably it's easier to find slots in Europe in summer than in winter. It's impossible. So I hear that our airlines plan well much in advance all the maintenance slots, and that's okay. That's what needs to be done in the proper operations of the airline. For the lessors, once again, if it goes in accordance with the agreement, most probably you can control that. I mean, if the, let's say, delivery happened on time and redelivery happened on time, everyone is happy. But if suddenly your contract collapses, I don't know, the lessee is in default, and you need to pull out the aircraft in the middle of the contract, and God knows in which season, spring or autumn or whatever, then obviously you will face certain problems. But let's say for AviaAM, we are not limiting ourselves to, let's say, our group internal MROs, and we always strive for the best efficiency, and even the location is important. I mean, if you will buy something in, let's say, I don't know, in Australia, will you ferry for maintenance into Vilnius? Most probably not. So, a simple
Yes.
example, but yeah. So it's lots of moving parts. But on the other hand, I think still the, how to say, the quality of the maintenance organizations, and I think it went down during the COVID times. Obviously, the industry lost certain intelligence, or just people left the industry with certain intelligence, and that gap can be felt globally, I guess, because well, even on our projects, I would say that the maintenance was much more predictable when you enter into the hangar. And nowadays, this question mark about your TAT, about your
Yes.
final bill, it grew
Yes.
up a bit,
Yes.
so. But that's fine. I mean, like we said, the whole industry was shattered, including the MRO. So most probably they need some time to adjust and come back on the right tracks.
There's a certain part of the market I'd like to touch on right now, especially that's midlife, right? The midlife market, midlife aircraft. What you see today, you've got airlines, one hanging on to or prolonging their leases, right, in that mid-range to later range aircraft. And they're doing that, obviously, yes, to secure market. Obviously, we've got the delays, which has influenced them to hold on to the capacity that they do have now. From a lessor's perspective as well, you have airlines saying we want to prolong our leases. At the same time, you've got these airlines also saying, all right, at the end of our leases, we want to buy out these aircraft as well, right? You have a lot of customers, airline customers, operators, and you're, on one hand, a lessor's focus is deploying aircraft capacity. How are you dealing with that, with with airlines wanting to remain or to keep the capacity that they do have. And at the same time, you've got customers saying, all right, we need this additional capacity. How are you dealing with that?
Michael, each and every contract, I think it's a separate, how to say, subject for consideration. I mean, usually the extension of the lease agreement means that most probably it will be extended for another 2-3 years, not more. Rarely somebody's extending for another 6 or 8 years. And then obviously it's subject to the agreement with the lessee, because you might be planning that, okay, I finish the lease, I will pull out the asset, I will buy it out, and then that's it. And then if that lessee says, okay, look, this aircraft is still good enough for me and I want to fly 2 years more, why not? I mean, obviously the question will be who will be doing the maintenance to enable that aircraft to fly through that extension. And I think that's the key for the lessor to make a decision. Like, we see all the major wide body operators, they're extending the leases just because the production is not really supplying the aircraft which were promised, and the timeline is still not clear, and that's fine. I mean, and I think they are accepting quite attractive conditions for the lessors, and then there is no brainer for the lessor to agree to that extension. And then not to forget that there's quite a bit trading happening between the lessors when the contract is being traded, not the asset as such. Like, call it sale with lease attached. And that's annoying for the lessee and the airline because there are
Yes.
certain things and they require their involvement as well. But this trading is happening as well. I mean, the lessors are shuffling the fleets among different, I don't know, financing structures or whatever. And then once again, somebody is seeking something with let's say, the stub lease of 2-3 years. Somebody's willing to have something fresh for the 6 or 8 year, and that's being dictated by the investor at the end. So I mean, lots of different scenarios could happen, but I think the key to it all is a frank and honest and in advance discussion between lessee and lessor, because obviously the tricks when coming very close to the end, somebody pops up and says, I want to extend the lease, and I can tell my story back in the days. I will not mention the names, but we bought an aircraft with 4 months of lease left, and we planned to sell it after we take it from the lessee. And we have already the buyer, we have this lessee, and then I'm coming to meet the lessee for the first time and asking, so the delivery is approaching like in 3-4 years. And the answer goes like, no, we will not redeliver. And I said, what? They said, well, the previous owner promised to extend the lease. So, so now it's funny. At those days, it was not funny.
Yes.
So that's one of my repossession cases,
Yeah.
which is always fun afterwards, but not so much fun when you're dealing with it. So, so different scenarios can happen. So now, even if you plan for something, it might be disrupted unexpectedly.
I think, especially, that example, right? In terms of one, staying on top of the industry, staying on top of the future projections. Okay, where's capacity going to be? At the same time, having a certain level of flexibility of knowing that if there's a disruption, right, we know how to reframe our business, rework it, reposition it to, at the end of the day, deploy the capacity that we need to, right? How are you, as AviaAM Leasing today, aircraft trading, aircraft leasing, providing that capacity to airlines, to operators? What is your focus, especially today in a market where there's so many different and shifting trends that are influencing the market? What are you focused on in terms of providing that capacity to the market today?
Michael, we trade more. That's less risk. Okay, then most probably we should be consider deleting leasing from our company's name. but yeah, on the market which is not stable, let's say, okay, even if it's for good or bad, I mean, but hot market, abnormal market, yeah. So the less you have long-term relationships with the lessee or long-term contracts, the less the risk is. Trading, okay, you can turn around the aircraft in, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 months. Most probably nothing will happen so dramatically, but still you can be caught by the situation. I still remember we were in the process to acquire 2 narrow-body aircraft when the COVID came. And we had the SPA in place, and then, we committed for that purchase, but then suddenly
That
you
changes.
understand that you're not willing to invest that amount of money into the passenger aircraft, which will be standing, I don't know, for how long on the ground. So then you obviously you go and if you agree that the market conditions are abnormal, then you agree on something and then part away, and then so yeah, it sounds a bit, how to say, not serious, but we focus more on trading when the market is not very stable, and let's say long-term commitments are kind of looking shaky.
Your outlook into the future, 5 years into the future, how do you see the market? I want to say changing, but it's changing is almost such a norm today because you never know what's going to happen a month from now. But how are you seeing outlook into the next 12 months, 24, 36 months, 5 years in the future?
Well, my wishful thinking is that everything will go back to normal. But what's the back normal? Maybe the new normal is
Now.
is
Yes.
a bit different,
Yes.
But yeah, obviously the problems we face this year most probably will not go away in 12 or 24 months. Even I wish all the best for the OEMs, and they will be, I don't know, putting all the efforts to ramp up back the production, but most probably they will not get back to those numbers they were planning for. Overall in the market still would mean that the lack of the capacity or the lack of the assets is the key, and that will drive or dictate the market conditions. So if there will be no disruptions for the operations, like one more pandemic or suddenly 10 volcanoes erupted or something like that, so most probably the market will be looking like today, But then, once again, we had a controversy even in our discussion, and I was saying, okay, look, like this, it will not stay forever. But then we both agree that there are many factors that most probably it will stay quite a long time, the current market conditions. So that's, I would say it's more like us sharing about the opinions, but none of us is a prophet, to tell what will happen.
Yes. Yeah. And as a final closing statement, in terms of what you are focusing on for the future, but not just that, what you hope to communicate to the market as AviaAM and you deploying capacity to the market, what do you hope to communicate to the market about your business, your services, and the value that you want to deliver to the market?
Look, the key for us was always, since the very beginning, our name in the market matters. So during those years and those 150, 200 transactions we did, I think we dealt with quite a number of different parties. And I'm pretty sure that there is no single complaint about dealing with us. So that's the most important thing. So I would say that our reliability in the market is a key for us, and we will keep on striving to keep it and to prove it to our customers. Yes, sometimes we cannot comply with the time frame because of some unexpected findings or issues, but then the honest and straight communication is very important. So I mean, we are based on these values and playing in the market where we all understand that revenue-wise and money-wise, it's a huge market, but people-wise, actually, Michael, it's not so big. So if you do something wrong
Yeah.
or you do something not right, I'm pretty sure everyone will know quite fast. So,
Yeah.
in my eyes, this reliability is important. Your name, like proof of your reliability, is important, and that's what we convey to the market. And frankly, more and more I hear like somebody's approaching us, even if we didn't had any communication before. They said, "Oh, somebody told that you are good to deal with," and that's the most thing I like. When I hear that somebody comes with the reference that, okay,
Yes.
these guys are trusted and you can do business with them.